everybody, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with Donny Vision Hypnosis here to talk to you about parents feeling guilty. Now, there are some parents who have not really done a really good job parenting, but I'm not talking about those parents. I'm talking about the parents who truly love and care about their children. And they find out sometime when the kid is a teen or even in their 20s, sometimes later, that some horrible things happened to them when they were young, but they were never told about it, number one. Maybe until it was decades later. And they feel horrible about it because they felt like they should have been able to do something about the situation. This is the thing, though. Parents cannot be around their children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there are times when they end up going to friends' houses and weird or even disgusting things can happen to them. And when they find this out, some of them who take their child seriously, they earn the trust of the child, they listen to the child, and they respect what the child is saying, are horrified by what they learned. And this just happened to a mother, a really loving mother of a really cute kid, I have to say, 15 years old, who hated going to school. Now, the known symptom was that she was being bullied. And they took her out of that school. They put her in another school, and she was still having nightmares about being bullied. But other things came to light, fairly recently, actually, about some weird things that happened while she was visiting friends' houses when she was 8 and 10 years old. Things that, well, some kids get into these things and some kids don't. But for her child, it was horrifying. We'll just leave it at that. Now, to this mother's credit, she's tried everything to help her child. The child has been in therapy. She's seen a psychiatrist. They're looking at integrative medicine now to see that she doesn't have any toxic problems going on or issues with metabolizing certain nutrients, and just make sure that's all good. And that's actually a really great idea, even though we do know that there's a history of trauma. Because we want to help the child in any way we can, in this case, a teenager. Now, we have to give this mom credit. She has a lovely relationship with her daughter, and we spoke. I think it was just yesterday. Yeah, it was just yesterday about what was going on. And I talked to her daughter to let her know how I do the work and what my responsibilities are and what her responsibilities are for her to be able to heal. And this is the thing, when I'm working with teens and young people, I always know in my heart and my soul that most of these kids have little to say about what they're doing in their lives. Adults are always telling them what they have to do, what happens when they don't do what they need to do, and sometimes they're not respected or listened to. So I make it a practice when I'm working with kids to let them know that they're their authority and what's going on in their lives. And my job is just to get that information out of their subconscious mind and to help them heal. But they have to do the work. They have to show up on time. And if I say something that pisses them off, they have to let me know that so we can work through it. That's part of the work as well as anything else. And to realize that because the information is coming from their subconscious mind, they're the ones directing the practice, what we're doing in the therapy. And though I do have a protocol based on a treatment plan structure that I developed many years ago that comes directly from the detailed personal history, that's the first step to figure out what's going on with any given client, we're going to be working toward their objectives. And their objectives are not just to let go of the negative things that are happening, in this case, nightmares and just feeling depressed and not wanting to go to school. We're dealing with, once all that crap is dealt with and it's no longer a problem for her, what would she like her life to look like? What would she want it to feel like? What hobbies is she not doing any longer that maybe she always enjoyed before this stuff came into being? What kind of relationships does she want to have that feel respectful and reciprocal in nature, maybe even loving? And what kinds of maybe some after school activities. She is actually involved in some after school activities. I know she's into dance, which is really great because movement is a really good way to deal with emotions in a lot of ways. And it's also artistic, so that's very cool. And she's doing very well in school, regardless of all of this stuff going on. And she was really funny because I told her, that I might piss her off with something she says or push back on her when she's not being realistic. She said, don't worry about it. She's had enough therapy to know how that works. If you have a therapist who actually cares enough to be real with you and speak the truths that many don't want to speak because they don't want to hurt the client. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm not here to hurt my clients, all right? I am here to help them be accountable to themselves and help them heal. And whatever that takes, that is what we do. And if they're not into it, they're not my client. And that's fine, let them do what they're ready to do. Not everyone's able or willing to do the kind of work that I do, and that's fine. But we have to have an understanding what that actually means before anything is engaged. And I also have to know that they fall within my scope of care, which for me is helping people overcome trauma, usually from childhood. But sometimes it's from really bad relationships a little bit later in life. And some people find themselves repeating the same patterns over and over again, attracting really, shall we say, unstable or controlling partners. And we have to break that habit. So I just wanted to bring this up because this particular case history is really important in terms of teaching us a lot of things. Children do need to be able to become resilient, and that comes from being able to know that they can take care of themselves. But as parents are responsible for keeping their children as safe as they can if problems come up to help them to deal with the problems because they're the ones with the money and the access to get the help. Minors don't have that ability in most cases. And I don't know how the laws work in all the different states in the United States, but I imagine that if they're going to contract to get help for themselves, parents have to sign off on the dotted line to make sure that happens as their guardians. In any case, know that you're doing the best that you can, and there's no manual on how to parent. Not really. At least that's what my mother-in-law told me when I told her about certain things that I didn't like happening in my then husband when I was having interactions with, seeing the interactions between him and his father early in our dating days. We're going back now, and I got to 1985, 86 period of time. And that's what she told me. There is no manual for raising children. Well, there's actually a lot of books written. You may or may not believe in what they have to say, but they're out there, all right? But parental strategies and styles have changed over the decades. And my feeling is hold your child accountable for the things that they need to be accountable for. Be very loving and caring. Be forgiving of them. And allow them to figure out what they're going to do to make things right if things go wrong. That certainly helped a lot when I was taking care of my godson while his dad was busy doing other things and his mother was kind of out of it. Worked out very well. We are the best of friends today because he's all grown up in his 30s. So I trust you found this helpful and to recognize we're all only human doing the best we can and live with grace, okay? Give yourself some grace. I hope you found this helpful. And as always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. Bye-bye all.